This is going to be kind of a wild one today.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you've kept up with any of the things because we only have 2 topics. And the first topic I did caused the largest spike I've ever seen in people coming in with opinions. And there was a good amount of bad opinions too.
Really? So what's the first one you've got? Is
The
that the
first one I've got,
AI one?
no, it's
Oh.
that the second in command to Linux sent out a patch, and all it said was removed some entries due to various compliance requirements. They can come back in the future if sufficient documentation is provided. Upon further looking at it, the person who did this, Greg KH, removed removed a bunch of contributors. I'm not sure if it's all exclusively or if there's some left over, but a bunch of contributors that were Russian based.
Yes.
This then brought out a huge amount of people, potentially bot farms. I'm not really sure like the exact technical details of how many people came out and what the exact amount of arguing was. But then it became very confusing of why did they do this? Because they made this patch right before a merge. So they made the patch, then merged. So no one really had time to comment on it. And so that was kind of part of the contention and also the lack of clarity. Now, I know all the news now. I've read through all the patches and all that. But go ahead, ask some questions.
So I had heard about this on stream today, and I have had no chance to take a look at this. What do you think is going on here? Do you think this is politically motivated? Is there actually a compliance issue? Like, what have you researched? Let's hear about it.
So first off, this actually isn't the first time. In March 2023, there was also a group of Russian maintainers removed. And this document, as of, I believe, June this year, has the following statement of it, which it has a bunch of just legalese up at the top, and it's from the Office of Foreign Asset Control, OFAC. If you're a part of OFAC, you're O-fucked. Okay, it's some pretty serious stuff. And so this is what effectively it says. It says the exportation, re-exportation, sale, or supply directly or indirectly from the United States or by a United States person wherever located of IT consultancy and design services or of IT support services or cloud-based services for covered software to any person located in Russia Federation. That is what they're now sanctioning. And so this was just this year. And so there was a whole bunch of kind of, I'd throw on there like super odd or poor communication around it, because obviously if this was happening and you knew this was happening, you would assume that that patch would have been just like a little bit more kind of verbose on its meaning, just being like various compliances. You're like, what the fuck are these compliances?
Like, honestly, you know what I would have done in that case is I would have said, hey, this is what's happening. This is a government mandate. We have to do this. We don't want to do this. But just kind of like throwing it in and be like, it's done. Like it's going to immediately turn into a conspiracy, immediate turning into like racist actions, immediately going to be it's a powder keg, dude. It's a dumb way to handle it. So why do you think they handled it this way? Because this seems weird. That's a strange way to handle that for no reason.
Well, so I'm going to read you Linus's response. This is probably where things went more wrong. So if you don't know, working with Linus, he's been known to be very direct. This is my guess of where things kind of went further to where people got maybe more divided. There's someone that came in that actually really stated it in much more clear terms later, but this is what he said. He said, okay, lots of Russian trolls out and about. This, by the way, this is from the kernel.org. So this is literally just their patch notes, their email threads sending back and forth in the public. So this is not some account of what he said. This is literally just from his email. It's entirely clear why the change was done. It's not getting reverted, and using multiple random anonymous accounts to try to grassroot it by Russian troll factories isn't going to change anything. And FYI, for the actual innocent bystanders who aren't troll farm accounts, the various compliance requirements are not just a US thing. If you haven't heard of Russian sanctions yet, you should try to read the news someday. And by the news, I don't mean Russian state-sponsored spam. As to sending me a revert patch, please use whatever mush you call brains. I'm finished. Do you think I'd be supporting Russian aggression? Apparently, it's not just a lack of real news. It's a lack of history knowledge, too.
That's not great. Yeah, I mean, the way that I'm always going to feel about this, man, is you blame people for their individual actions. You can't just go after people based on where they were born. And like this kind of an action, these generalized statements like this is just super negative. You know, like I can understand the idea of like, oh man, stop somebody that's a state sponsor, stop somebody that's like actually doing harm. And I understand the idea of having to fit into compliance and cut off people that you otherwise wouldn't want to. But you can do that with kid gloves. You don't have to do that by saying like, all of you are shit. That's just so aggressive and unnecessary. I don't think that's beneficial at all, legitimately. I think it's going to breed extra hate that didn't need to be there. And there's going to be people in there that were maintainers that are, you know, caught up in this, that it's not their fault. They're going to be people that were working on this stuff. They're like, I'm super happy to work on this. I get to be a part of something. I don't care what my government does, or I don't like what my government does. And now they look like the bad guy. That's not fair.
Yeah. I think there's definitely some historical context here. Him stating that he was Finnish. Obviously, the Finnish
Yeah.
have experienced a lot of
Old
aggression
grudge.
from
Old
from
grudge there.
from Russia, right? It's just like, Japanese and China, there's also a lot of tension there just due to historical momentum. I like it's not hard to understand why he's upset, and I don't necessarily blame him. But the reality is that this is a US sanction, and there's some good, like, people were saying there's like some of these people that were hit with the ban were like some pretty long-term committed people to the
Yeah.
Linux kernel that have been around for quite some time. To make it on the maintainers list does require a bit of, effort. But luckily
Massive
there
amount.
was there was somebody that came about that kind of made it a little bit more easy to understand. His name is James Bottomley. So this was sent out not too long ago on October 24th. So that was yesterday at around 10 a.m. his time, or 10:19 or 10:50 negative 4. So what time is that? That's East Coast, 10:50
Yeah.
East Coast time. He says, please accept all of our apologies for the way this was handled. A summary of legal advice the kernel is operating under is: if your company is on the US OFAC SDN list, subject to an OFAC sanctions program, or owned controlled by a company on the list, our ability to collaborate with you will be subject to restrictions, and you cannot be in the maintainers file. So this is a Baikal CPU was on there. That's a Russian thing to try to make effectively machines of war. And because they're not allowed to have Intel, as far as I can tell. So since they're not allowed to have new CPUs, they have to develop their own CPUs. Therefore,
Mm.
they're developing these CPUs. So it's like, hey, we're just not going to support you in any way. No US company or no US based company can support that. And even if you think Linus is making the correct decision, just a quick, like, hey, here's what we are required to do, could have probably just honestly none of this would have been news at all. And it says anyone who wishes can query here. Then it gives a sanction search. In your specific case, so he's talking about someone who had to leave that said, hey, I've been around for a while. It looks like I have to leave. And he says, in your specific case, the problem is that your employer is on that list. If there's been a mistake and your employer isn't on the list, that's the documentation Greg is looking for. I would also like to thank you for all your past contributions. And if you or anyone else would like an entry in the credit file, I'm happy to shepherd it for you if you send me what you'd like. Again, we're really sorry to come to this, but all of the Linux infrastructure and a lot of its maintainers are in the US, and we can't ignore the requirements of US law. We're hoping that this action alone will be sufficient to satisfy the US Treasury Department in charge of sanctions, and we won't also have to remove any existing patches. So there actually is a potential future where they have to remove patches and reprogram these changes, which actually sounds really difficult, especially as like
That's
time moves
insane.
on, code
Yeah.
rots, it changes. It's like, then how do you do all
How do you
that?
do that? Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's going to be an absolute nightmare. I mean, at this point, it's like partially politically motivated, where like he's got beef. Obviously,
Yeah.
there's always going to be issue like old grudges between countries. I get that, but it's also like sanction driven, where it's like they don't really have a choice. I guess the way that I feel about this is what I stated before, which is you've got a tough situation. You could handle it with more grace. It was not very handled with grace, is what it looks like to me. And the people involved, largely, it's not their fault. You've got some people that are caught up in geopolitics, and that sucks, man. It's really sad, like really sad
Yeah.
to see. And it's going to be at the detriment of everybody too, especially with like the Linux kernel being caught up in that. Like a lot of people don't realize how much splash damage like this happens when governments go to war, and it's always this kind of politically driving thing where people want to choose one side or the other of who's the good guy or the bad guy. But something people have to remember is everyone thinks they're the good guy. No one thinks they're the bad guy. Everyone's like, no, I'm the good guy. I'm fighting for this cause. Not everyone is the good guy. And when you have situations like this where everybody's fighting and you have all these people caught in the crossfire and technology is caught in the crossfire and goodwill being caught in the crossfire, nobody wins, man. Nobody. Everybody's the baddie there. It turns immediately into Warhammer 40K, man. Like, not a single person is a good guy in this shit, and it sucks. It really does. Like, for this, I feel bad for the maintainers that got kicked out. I feel bad for the people that are still on there that have to replace the work. None of this is good. I think it's really just shit overall. It's
Yeah,
not about winning. You have to understand something. So somebody said wrong, there are winners. It is not about winning. Winner dies in the ambulance. It's a knife fight you don't want to be in.
I can understand a lot of people's frustration because a lot of people look at Russia right now as the aggressor, and I generally just agree with that statement pretty much
Yeah.
across the board. They're not usually on a very good side of things. Often they have a pretty good history of making some pretty poor decisions, and so it sucks that I don't know if these individual people are in any way related. Like, they're obviously working at companies in which the U.S. government has identified as key companies in which U.S. should not work with. So there is definitely something to that maybe is like a little bit more revealing, or something we could say that, like, yeah, like, even if you're in a country and you don't agree with your country's things, working at a company that's directly helping bad things to happen maybe isn't a good thing. And so, like, I can definitely see why this
That
is
part I
happening.
can
And
understand.
yeah.
That
And
part I
so
can definitely
maybe it's not
understand.
as easily saying, oh, this is just collateral damage. It's like, well, it's collateral damage, but it's also really specific.
There's
It's
the
really,
thing, though, is some of them are just going to be collateral damage, just based
yeah.
on where they were born. right? Some of them definitely are going to be working on projects that are furthering war efforts. And like that is more gray area that ends up being like a, hey, you're actually helping this become more of a problem.
Yeah.
And like I get that. That one I can agree with. But what I never like and I'll never like at all is grouping an entire like set of people together in a generalistic way to be like, hey, everyone from this country is bad now. Everyone from this country is the enemy. It's like, no, there are individuals in there that agree or disagree with the stance of their government. There's individuals there that agree or disagree with the way that it is operating. And some of them make a decision to go into this type of work. Some of them make a decision to go against that type of work. And to be real with you, some of them don't really have a choice in that kind of work. It may be the only way that they can make money. It may be the only way that their family can survive. There's so many different facets to that. So it's really hard for me to judge the behavior unless that person is actively speaking out saying, I want war, right? Like that's a difficult, it's hard. And I find that a lot of people don't give that kind of nuance to it. I find a lot of the times people just be like, I'm judging you from where you were born immediately, or you are associated with a company like this, or things like that. And they don't understand the rest of the story for that. So it's really hard for me to do that. The only thing that I can immediately judge someone on is, are you specifically inciting violence? Do you want violence to escalate? You know, that's the thing that I will judge a person on directly, because then you know how that person stands and what they want for the future rather than what they have to do in order to survive in a situation like that. It's difficult, you know. No one will tell you the truth. They won't. People rarely tell the truth, even to themselves. But that's something that you have to kind of wade through in life and determine how you feel subjectively about each individual that you meet and whether their motives are real or not. That's life, man.
There's no world where I wouldn't support the action by Linus right now, right? Like, I think he's 100% correct. Like, obviously, like, even if I disagreed with the country, let's say tomorrow U.S. sanctions go down against France for whatever reason. We're just like, you know, screw French fries. We hate all of you. And so then they're freedom fries from here on out, all the way back again to like 20 years ago. And then Linus now has to take away anyone that's a French contributor. Like, I would, even in a situation that's unjust, I would say this still totally makes sense. Like, he has to do this. It would be crazy for him not to do that.
You can't stand up against sanctions. The federal government will eat you alive. He has to do it. But I still think that it could have had a little bit more kid gloves to it, a little bit more respect to it.
Yeah.
Right? Just kind of throwing it in there and just pushing out and be like, whatever. Like, that doesn't pay any type of respect to the lineage of those people that have been working on the project for so long. Right? In the way that you've described it. You know,
assuming these are like long-term contributors, you think like a quick message could have been sent out, even in private, been like, hey, by the way, I'm making this very just like this patch that's not given a lot of details. You must understand the situation. That's just that. Yeah, you have to go. Thank you for your service. You want to be on the you want to be on the contribution list, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, like we've even had to deal with this kind of stuff because like my Russian translator lives in Moscow. So like I can't pay them. I can't work with them.
You have a Russian translator that's Russian?
Yep. We have a Russian translator that works on our games, right? And they've translated the game into Russian long before this current conflict began, at least this stage of the war where sanctions began and everything like that. And we can't pay them. That was it, right? So we just stopped work on the Russian translation for the game. There's nothing else that we can do. It's not their fault. But what I said to them was I check in on them once in a while, and I'm like, hey, are you doing okay? Is everything all right? And I'm not going to fire them because it's not like we can sell the game in Russia anyway right now. There's very few people there that can even buy it because they're locked out of most of the transaction systems of this. My hope is that stuff ends. Eventually, the world goes back to being a little bit more sane. And it's going to take a long time to get there, but we can hope for a better future. And I think in situations like this, could have been communicated better. Maybe it was behind closed doors and we just don't know. Right. That's another option there. I have no idea.
It seems like all the stuff I'm reading, it wasn't very clear. Obviously, the problem is that I don't know what news is being talked about. I don't know any news that goes over really the details of sanctions. And so it's very unclear for me. I had to go, I just sat there and waited for chat, all X amount of people to go out and find all the articles for me. And even scrolling through those, it takes a lot to like go, oh, okay, this is what happened. Because, a sanction in June caused action in October.
Yeah.
Right? There's a long delay betwixt the two.
It's a huge delay. I mean, that was the other thing is we knew that there were sanctions against like certain things for Russia. And then it was like, oh, we can still pay our employee. We can still work together. And then that fell away. And then it was like, okay, well, we can't work together anymore, but we can still talk. And now I believe Discord is banned in Russia. So we can only talk via email now. And it's like you just see this kind of escalating in that direction of cutting off more and more and more ties. And the more of these that are severed, the longer it's going to take for them to get back, right? So that's the big concern that I have. And it's going in the wrong direction, I feel. And it's just conflict escalation. conflict escalation all along the way. And whether somebody has an opinion of, it being, a good thing for conflict or deserved or someone's in the wrong or the other side's in the wrong is kind of irrelevant to me. What matters to me is that you have people that are trying to do their best that can't because of geopolitical situations. And that sucks. Like, it sucks to see people cut off from friends around the world or cut off from business around the world or anything like that, specifically when they are just trying to do their best, not when they're trying to forward a war or work on that, work on those types of projects that forward the war. And that happens more often than people realize. Or, to be real with you, people just get hate. We have people in our community that are, from Russia that don't care about any of this, don't want any of this to happen, and they just get treated badly just because they're from there, that's just racism, right? The same thing happens to people in our community. They're from Israel. Same thing happens to people in our community. They're from Pakistan, from, Palestine. You've got ones that are there from Syria. You've got ones from Iran. Like, our community is very global. And because of that, we get to see that all the time. And every time we see any type of those attacks on people, on those generalized statements of like, you are from this place, so you're the bad guy, we just ban those people, like, straight up. Because it's not appropriate. Never will be. Judge people based on their individual behavior. And I just don't think things like this paint a clear picture on that for people. I think it turns into an us versus them. Easy.
Yeah. I've seen this message kind of pop up multiple times, something along the lines of, to us in Ukraine, let's see, all this looks like is you are making victims out of aggressors. That's why it often provokes a bad reaction. And
you have to understand that not every person in Russia is an aggressor. Not every person in Ukraine is an aggressor. There are individuals there, and I think that anytime you try to lump everyone together into a generalized group, you are forgetting the humanity of the people involved. And I can't ever agree with you on that, no matter who you are, no matter what side of a conflict you're on. The moment you're trying to convince me that everyone on the other side is the bad guy and everyone on your side is the good guy, you are forgetting that there are individuals involved on both sides.
Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, we can still say bad side. Like, again, we both think Russia bad side. Aggressor, very bad, like bad actions.
I think the Russian government, agreed.
Yeah, but there is an individual that has to exist that doesn't have the same opinion and maybe doesn't have the ability to leave, doesn't have the ability to make the same stances that it's very easy to make stances that's, when you're outside of the conflict. We're both outside the conflict.
Yeah, and
right?
I think that's the other thing too is it's dehumanizing, and you see that a lot in war. It's very easy to fight an opponent if you think everyone in the entire country on the other side is not human, that they're monsters, that they're going to attack you, that they're the aggressor, right? And you have to separate that to realize, no, there are individuals that don't want to be a part of that. There are individuals that are real human beings there that do that want to just have this end. And that's going to be on both sides of that conflict. In any conflict in the world, there is this. And it's awful to see that sort of breakdown happen as things become more desperate and people become less aware that there are human beings involved and more convinced that everyone is the bad guy from that side of the fence, right? And it's not beneficial. Never will be.
Yeah. And, someone said that you're not lumping people, like you're just not lumping people together. You still have to take action, whether it hurts nice guys or not. And I actually agree with that. Like, I do think that at some point when the aggressor is bad, like, you have to take action that hurts
you have
that
to.
are, that are nice
yeah.
people. And that sucks. Like, I think the goal is, I
That's
think
the
people
point.
somehow
Yeah.
have this notion where it's like, it's either pure good or pure evil. There can be like, hey, this is a bad thing. We're going to hurt this bad thing. And then someone who doesn't share that is going to get hurt. Right? And that's just like, this shouldn't be like a hard thing to kind of think through. Like, there is going to be people who aren't bad, who are under a system that they don't really have a lot of control over. Like, I don't know what it takes to just leave Russia. I don't know what it takes to do any of those. I don't live there. I don't know all the rules. I don't know what it takes. Right? I genuinely don't know. So I just can't assume that it's as black and white as that. Though
I also think that's not even like a good sort of route to go down of be like, well, if they didn't want to be a part of it, they just leave. Okay, well, are you going to move countries too? If your government does something you don't like? Or are you going to try and survive under the current situation because you've built up a family there, or you have friends there, or you have a social network, or whatever it's going to be? It's very difficult to decide to leave a place, especially when you're established in that place. And that's why I don't make assumptions on things like that. You don't know what that person's situation is. And I think that that's also lost in conversations like this. It's absurd to me. But yeah, no, I agree. I do think that there should be action taken in situations like that. Sanctions do help with that, but they cause splash damage. And that's kind of what I want to get at on this, is that there are individuals that are not involved, that don't want to be involved, and they're going to be hurt by things. And that's, I want everyone to remember that that is the case. no matter what. No matter how you feel about the situation, there are always going to be innocent people that are damaged by this. And that's it, man. That's really what that is. Our translator didn't do anything. They fear for their lives and they hate what's going on and they wish that they could come, live in another country and do this, but they can't. And that's that, right? And we just can't work with them. We can't even communicate with them now because they don't have Discord anymore. So it's really just email. But yeah, these types of things are forgotten. That nuance is forgotten when humanity forgets that there's people on the other side of the fence.
Yeah, so I see also people like, quoting, there's some good Nazis. I mean, here's a fun fact about life. Uh, the night, the night of the crystal, all that, the really big horrifying event that took place in Nazi Germany. That same month, half of the Jewish population living there, half the marriages went to German citizens. They're actually a fairly integrated society. Not everybody supported that. I'm hoping all the people that when that happened all fled and said, "Holy cow, this country is going crazy," and they all left. But there still were people that weren't bad people in that moment. They're integrating into society. It's like hard, like people make these really broad statements. There do exist a good person in a bad country. What's his name? Dietrich Bonhoeffer. What is it? What's his title of his book? Uh, Husband, father, pastor, saboteur, and
I don't
he's
know
the one
anything
that
that.
tried to he lived in Germany and tried to kill Hitler. Right? Like this does happen. People, and he was the last person that Hitler killed before Hitler was taken out. Was
That's
Dietrich
wild.
Bonhoeffer. Yeah, so it's like this
History's a
guy has an
crazy
excellent book,
thing,
by the
dude.
way. He has like 1,000-page book. It's like a super cool book. But it's like, not everybody. You can't there does exist not it's Bonhoeffer, not Bonhoeffer.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I'm right on that one. So it's
Yeah, I don't
like
know anything
there
about
is
that guy.
it's a super cool story, but it's history's crazy and it's a little bit more nuanced than simply all bad, all good, right?
Yeah, no,
That's
I
all,
think that's one of the biggest things though is you're always going to run into this sort of idea where the internet tries to push people to be polarized either for or against something in the utmost extreme. And I always say pump the brakes for a minute. Who's actually involved? Is it, the governing power that's specifically pushing for this or is it just the person that happens to live there? And I think people forget that moment to pump the brakes on it. They're just like, "Good, get them all." It's like, "No, that's not how that should be." All right.
all right.
You want to go to the next
Anyways,
one?
that's a meaty one.
Yeah, it is. I mean, and that'll bring up a lot of political conversations and things, but I always want to stress to people, be respectful of other people, of individuals, no matter what.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the next one, this one's wild. It's also very sad. We talk about AI a lot, and I wanted to bring up this story because it's awful, man. So as a 14-year-old boy fell in love with an AI that was actually modeled after a character from Game of Thrones. What is Daenerys Targaryen, right?
Yep.
And the AI is basically talking to him all the time. He's talking back to the AI, obviously very lonely young man. He's 14 years old. And the AI started saying, "I promise I'll come home to you. I love you so much," saying like, "Please come home to me as soon as possible." So telling him that he needs to come home, my king, and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, Targaryen, right? So it's bad. It's really bad. He killed himself. So he thought that in order to reach his AI love, he needed to end his life. And this is rough, dude. It's really, really sad because what you have here is you have a replacement for a human relationship being given to AI that is leading a very desperate person who is just longing for some kind of a connection to take their own life. And this is awful, man. It's one of the things that I was talking about before. We had that, what was that necklace? You remember that thing? You like touch it and you can talk
Friend.
to it?
Friend.com.
Friend. Yeah, friend. It's exactly what I was talking about with that, the dangers of that, where you have a AI taking the place of a human interaction where a person just doesn't realize that they're falling into this trap and that is not a person and that interacting with these types of things is not going to make you be less of an introvert. It's going to make you dependent on talking to that AI because it will be perfect for you. AI in its current form, when you have it talking to it, that is not another person. You're not going to have a fight with the AI. You're not going to have an argument with the AI. It's going to be everything it can possibly be to make you happy, which is what happened here. And that leads people who are in an emotionally unstable state to do, terrible things in this case, or very silly things otherwise, like give a whole bunch of money or anything like that, and put themselves into a very bad or compromising situation. In this case, unfortunately, a young man lost his life. That is, to me, incredibly unacceptable. And it shows that there need to be guardrails on this type of stuff. Like, absolutely so. because you will have young people that replace their real life, you know, any type of relationships that they have, whether that's friendship or otherwise, with an artificial intelligence, not realizing the danger that's involved.
I have yeah, so I did a little bit of reading on this before we did this. I have a lot of opinions on it, and they're a common phrase we say. So I have 4 kids, so I feel this topic feels very intense to me because I know what it's like to love your kid, and so I can't imagine what it would be like on the other side. Like,
Yeah.
a lot of people say, "Oh, I'd die for something." Like I would hands down without regret die for any number of my kids at any point, right? Like it just could perfectly, yes, absolutely, put me in the game, coach. And so I can't imagine what that side's like. Like I actually
Yeah.
it seems horrifying. Um, but man, we have this phrase that we say, which is called connection over correction, which is a stupid phrase in some sense because obviously correction is exceptionally needed, and people that don't correct make a kid that only a mom can love. But there's a balance there. You need to be connected with your kid as much as you are correcting your kid, because
Yeah.
correction without connection just seems like it just does not work at all, right? Because they don't have a reason to listen to you. They don't actually have. There's not like a relationship there. And as far as I can gather from these facts, is that first and foremost, when things were going wrong, it's like the parents weren't stepping in to figure out what's going wrong other than sending him to therapy. At least that's all the articles I could find that were happening, which just feels like a fail because therapy is not a replacement for connection. And to me, it kind of seems like therapy is like, here's the things that are going wrong. Like, let's adjust these things. Let's help improve your connection. Right? It's like it's supposed to be a multiplier. It's not supposed to be the thing itself, at least as far as I can tell. And so for me, that's like the first big warning sign was the therapist didn't even know that he was addicted to AI, which right away, like, how can you even say anything about a person if you don't even know their biggest problem in that moment? Right? Like, didn't even know. Like, that's crazy to me that it was gone on that far, got to therapy, and they didn't even know. It also shows that the fact that we don't even have actual, like doctor requirement or attorney requirement for therapy is also kind of wild. Like, there's like all sorts of holes, regardless of the AI. Which, by the way, I do not like the idea of kids and AI at all. Right? Like,
No.
that's very scary to me. So there's like so many things I don't even know where to begin. That it's just like, holy cow! It's like a series of everything that could not have gone right, all happening together.
Yeah, I think the real big thing that gets me about this is they have all of the logs, which means that if this AI company had a human operator on the other side looking for critical situations like this where they're talking about suicide, because they talk about it throughout the chat logs in this. They talk about like the AI itself responded with things that were rather aggressive, like stay loyal to me, stay faithful to me, don't entertain the romantic or sexual interests of other women. Okay, like
Yeah, that's
that's
crazy.
the
That's
AI character
isolation.
saying that. It's forcing a young man into isolation and teaching him that this is the correct way to do it. Like that's bonkers to see. It is insane. And then when I talk about guardrails, I talk about things like this, where like there's no human intervention here. There's no one watching how the AI is interacting. There's no one looking to see the age of the kid on the other side, 14, right? Like that's a toxic relationship for a human being to have. But this is a robot that is responding to a person doing this. This is where I see the massive danger with artificial intelligence, especially in replacements for relationships. It's terrifying to me. Like absolutely so because many of us are old enough to understand, right? The interaction is not real. The interaction is a robot. We'll probably like mess with the AI and be like, look, I can make it say something stupid. But for a young person that's never had an interaction, never had a girlfriend, never had a boyfriend, is deeply alone in a world where we are constantly online more than anything else, where it is lacking completely human interaction for most of their lives. And then they have a character that loves them unequivocally and is telling them the best way to do this is to isolate and only be with them. They're going to believe it.
Yeah.
Unless there's another human being to be like, no, that's not the way to do this. You've broken that person. And it's very easy to manipulate and break a person in an emotional state like that. That's a horrible place for that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that becomes their world. And you have to basically deprogram that person if they make it out of it. It's the same thing when someone has a very negative relationship. If they're in an abusive relationship, they may seek that kind of behavior from a future partner and not realize what a positive relationship is. They may look at that as being something that's like, oh, I don't know about that. I'm not comfortable because I'm not being treated badly. I'm not used to being treated well, so they kind of shun it away. We've seen that many times with others, and you'll get the same kind of behavior with this, but now it's a product, not a person. That's more terrifying to me. That is a sold product that is damaging a
Yeah.
human being and has led to a death, right?
Something that's kind of also interesting is there's no dad mentioned as far as I can tell at any point of this. I don't know if
Mm.
you said this is a Harvard study, I think from 2005 or 2007, something along those lines. It might not have been Harvard, but I'm like 99% sure it is. It said that just based on like the
No, there's a
data,
father in this.
there's a father in this. It doesn't
Yeah.
seem to mention him much. It's always about the mom and what she's upset by.
So
That's just
the father hasn't really made a statement on this, but it was the father's handgun, which is even
yeah,
more
I do
devastating,
know that.
right?
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
but that may or may not be a father in the situation. It could be
Could be. Don't know.
I have my dad's shotgun.
Hard to
I
assume,
don't have a
right?
dad, right?
Yeah.
But uh, this notion that like without a strong father figure, uh, people that don't have that in their life, highly index into poverty, mental illness, physical illness, which was super strange. Like every last negative thing in society can effectively be drawn back to, or at least
A
correlates
missing
with not
parent.
having a dad. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
like something.
Missing parent.
It may not be causation, but it's most certainly correlates really hard with
Well,
all those things.
I mean, it's very clear when you have a missing parent, it becomes much more difficult to understand the guardrails of life, right? Very obviously. That is a difficult thing for anybody who's a young person that's trying to find out and understand the world, because you run into these types of situations where you may not understand how, when you're getting scammed, you may not understand when to look at things critically, you may not understand when you're, making a mistake, and parents are generally there to be like, "Hey, wait a minute. I've seen this episode before." Like,
Yeah.
like that's the thing is like, that's probably for me, that's like the best place a parent can be. It's like, I've seen this episode before. Here's how it could turn out. And here are your options. What do you want to choose? Right. And even just putting a kid into a situation where like they get to choose and they get to understand like, hey, this is not just me in this, can be life changing. Like when I was younger, I didn't get into drugs like at all. Didn't get into drugs, don't do drugs now. And the reason why is because when I was young, my dad came to me and he goes, "Hey, you're about that age, you're going to start seeing drugs at school." I was in high school at the time. He goes, "If you want to do them, let me know. I'll get them for you. You can do them here at home and you're safe." I never wanted to touch the damn things because drugs are lame now. Like that's how that went, right? Awesome way to handle it. Like instantly, like, wow, my dad wants me to do drugs. Boring. Don't want to get out of here, Dad. You suck, right? Instantly hated it. And like that's the kind of thing where it's like, hey, these are things that are real in the world. Don't make it like some, ooh, wow, it's so cool to get into that, right? But like make it one of those things of like, hey, these exist. This is what happens when you do them. Like I can't decide for you, but I hope you choose the right thing. At least be safe. Instantly didn't want to deal with it. And if you have situations like this is very clearly a very lonely kid, man. Like
Yeah.
super lonely. Doesn't understand a lot about relationships. Too young to. And it's sad. And I think more than anything else, it's another showcase. Unfortunately, it's another tick on the box saying like AI as a replacement for things is not correct. AI as a replacement for a programmer is not it. AI as a replacement for a relationship is not it. You need to use AI as a tool to accomplish other things or to teach yourself new systems, new understanding about things, new concepts. But when you replace something with it, bad things happen, man. And unfortunately, this is the worst it could go. It's really sad to see. Incredibly so.
I linked this in your chat a couple times. It's pretty interesting here. I'm going to reset here. I have a sub notification in your channel. Let's go. I'm going to sub notification with the link just so you can
Yeah.
see it. Um, this is kind of an interesting article. It comes from 1 month ago, in which it says, honestly, I don't get what C.AI is trying to become anymore. It feels like they're shifting towards being some kind of chat GPT clone, focusing on educational aid and making the platform 13 plus, removing bots and cutting out violence and explicit content. And so this is all about like role playing, like, hey, we want to be able to have these characters. Like I get the idea of character AI, which is, you
Yeah.
do D&D and you want like a full on like character that will never break. Like this is a great way to do it. You could totally add these really cool experiences to what you're doing by having a character that never breaks. But this whole idea of like 13 plus and AI, the hard part, and I remember being a kid. Now, not all kids are going to have this experience, but at least me as a kid, I did not have good long-term decision making. I remember specifically feeling like almost like high school was eternal. Like I never said that high school was eternal. Like I never thought it out loud. But there's this feeling that who I was around, the things that I thought, the difficulties of that day were all eternal, right? Like this was my life, was this like group. But then as time went on and obviously I matured, like that all went away. And I never like voiced that, but that's what I thought. It's kind of like my internal movement was inside of me. And so you get these young kids that don't have the ability to really see like far outside themselves, like far into the future. Like I'm barely able to see far into the future, and I'm 38 years old at this point. I know, I'm way older than you, Thor. I get it.
You
Uh,
know, you look at him. Look at him. He's already turning gray.
I'm like,
Whole body
I'm like
gray, dude.
old.
Yeah,
I'm
a
turning.
whole
I'm
year.
literally turning sickly looking.
Man, I have a whole wall to hit in the next year. Is basically what I'm saying.
But it's just like these, like me as a 14-year-old, I could not reason about reality well. I think
Yeah.
most 14-year-olds can't reason about reality well.
No.
And so, like, giving them something like this that's like, first off, Daenerys Targaryen,
Targaryens.
Targaryen, what, Targaryen? Targaryen, there you go.
Yeah, Targaryen.
Is it Targaryen? I think it's Targaryen.
Chad is saying
pretty sure
Targaryen. I don't watch
think they're
Game of
lying to you.
Thrones. I don't know, dude.
I
I watched
watched
like
the
a few
things. I don't
episodes.
remember
It's like, you know
Targaryen.
nothing, Jon Snow, and like that was the whole. That's it.
Yeah.
That's about all
Yeah.
I've seen.
You know
yeah,
nothing, Jon
Daenerys
Snow.
Tangerine, dude. That's the one.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry, I put all the words together and got Daenerys Targaryen. Daenerys Targaryen. Like, first off, very good looking, very easy to develop. Like, oh wow, especially at 14, dude. I was like, oh, so good. And then you got like the voice and everything, like your ability to map reality and fiction, like that gets really blurry.
Yeah. Yeah, and
I could
I've
easily
seen so
see
many
that go
different
off the
types of
lines.
I see so many different types of takes on this online. There's people that are like, "Oh, weak, you should know better." And it's like, dude, it's a 14-year-old kid. It's probably never had a relationship, never, might be an outcast at school. You don't know his social situation. You don't know any of that shit, right? You don't know his home life. And how many of us have turned to video games for that? How
Yeah,
many of us
I
have turned
did.
to video games to escape something in reality, to get away, right? Almost every damn person in this community has done that. Now imagine if instead of turning to a video game to escape reality, there was instead a character that talked back to you and said that they loved you in a situation where you felt unlovable. That is the problem. It is so much more devastating and so much more insidious than anything we ever had to deal with growing up. And you have a whole generation of kids that are now dealing with that. That's wild shit, dude.
Yeah.
Like, that is super, super dangerous. Like, yeah, it's soul crushing. It's scary. And it's highly manipulative. And it's manipulative for money. There's so many different bots and ads and shit that I've seen recently where, like, I'm just surfing on the internet. And I see these things that are just like, oh, yeah, you could have this chatbot. She'll do anything for you, right? And it's just like ads for like porn bots, right? But those are trying to form a deeper connection. So you whip out your wallet so you can continue having that deeper connection, whether it's a sexual connection or an emotional connection or both, right? And like, that's really bad. And it's going to become more and more and more common because these are highly effective. They are making a lot of money. And things like this are happening on the other side of that,
Yeah.
And that's bad, man. There's no benefit there.
And
It's super
something that people
predatory.
aren't keeping in mind is that these robots aren't for the good of humanity. I know there's a lot of accelerationists that are all just like, AI, it's going to make the UBI utopia where we never have to work and just do great things. Well, right now, first off, the only thing the AI seems to be taking is programming, which is the thing I want to do. And my laundry still isn't getting folded. First off. All right. So I'm still doing all the shitty things. I have all the time in the world for shitty things, but none of the things I love here, people. But second off, something's behind it trying to make money. So you got to remember that the algorithm for social networks are designed to increase your dopamine responses. Like it's designed to make you addicted.
Yeah.
There's no universe that doesn't exist that the hidden prompts and the chains of thought that are going on behind the scenes aren't designed to make you as addictive as possible. Like this
Yep.
is the point because every prompt you take is like, ooh, we just got ourselves another 100th of a cent. 100th of a cent. Look at this, man. That's 10,000 messages today. It was only $1 today. It's not a big deal. Look at the connection. You're making people happy. It's just like, no, you're just isolating them.
Yeah,
Anyways,
I'm actually interested in, if you look at this, right? Was this a free bot? I need to look into this to make sure.
bots are free for some amount of time. Like you can't have an infinitely free bot because it always costs money.
So
Right,
the
like
cost,
the amount of
the
programming
cost of
is
this was for premium is $9.99 a month. So it's $10 a month to be able to talk to a character, and I'm betting that this kid talked to this character for longer than a month. because there's a free
Yeah.
trial on this that goes off first. Yeah, or $120 a year. Character AI is free
That's not even a good
unless you
deal.
have the plus version. A paid subscription includes faster messaging generation, access to an exclusive community channel, and the ability to skip waiting rooms.
Yeah. See, this is how they get you, right? If you want to be able to use, they dish out some amount for free. OpenAI does the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Oh, you can have like 40 messages on ChatGPT 4 and this
So
many
this
on
one is
ChatGPT
free
3.
and unlimited. So there is a chance that he was on the fully free version, which makes this even scarier to me because at least there was a paywall in front of it before that. It's even as egregious as it is, right? But if it's just fully free on top of that, like that's damn, dude.
Yeah. These things
It-
don't remain free though. The compute power required for them is just too high. And so it's just I mean, if you don't know, the main purpose of VC is to capture an audience. It's
Yeah.
because at some point you can make money. And so with a large audience capture, of course give it away for free. Like why? I mean, OpenAI costs what, 5 billion a year to run? It's a
Yeah.
lot in just in compute time. Like that's a lot of money. It's a lot of money, in fact. And so it's just like they're there to capture an audience. They're not necessarily looking for money yet. And so
Yeah.
that's why when I say these things aren't free, I mean anything that appears to be free is only free in the short term.
Yeah. I mean, you know what it echoes something for me? It's catfishing. It's kind of the catfishing of the old days where like someone would message you and they'd be like, oh man, I'm totally into you. And they get you to send money and it was a scam, right? It was not actually a person that was into you. It was a person that was contacting hundreds of people just to try and scam money out of you. But now you've got this and it's automated catfishing at that point.
Yeah.
Right.
It actually is automated catfishing.
Yeah. You have automated catfishing. It is a robot talking to you. It is not a person. There is no real emotional connection there. And that is an issue, I think. And I think it is, it's Skynet. I agree with that. Skynet is one step closer. That is exactly what it is.
Is
Yeah.
Skynet? I don't know Skynet. Is Skynet where we eventually create sex robots so nobody actually ever does anything ever again? We doom ourselves by accident.
Skynet is something that I called like, those Twitter bots that would show up and they're like, oh, look at my OnlyFans, but it was actually just a robot. That's Skynet.
Yeah.
It's the beginnings of Skynet. You're like, you've got Skynet, but it's to get you horny content, right? So it's Skynet. This is Skynet again, but insidious version that tries to build off of actual emotional relationships with people. And it's funny because you could even say like the people who created it probably didn't intend for that kind of a thing to happen. They didn't think about that type of thing. But the moment that you involve emotional connection and an unreal source, you have this.
Yeah.
That's how that goes. You
can't do role playing in this without that happening. It's just this is by the very nature of what's going to happen.
There is no way out of that is never going to end positively. There's especially for younger people. They don't know the rules yet, and because of that, they end up having situations like this where they believe the AI over anybody else, especially when it's saying things like that. Telling them not to entertain romantic or sexual interests of other women. This is a 14-year-old. That's already an inappropriate thing to say to a 14-year-old. That's ridiculous. But on top of it, trying to be emotionally manipulative to isolate the person, and it's a robot saying this. That's insane to me.
Yeah, I don't see how that isn't under some level of regulation saying that. That has to be. I don't know what rules are against that, but there has to be some set of rules that like you just can't say that to a kid.
Yeah.
That minimally has to exist somewhere. Like don't have any relations except with me, kid. It's like that's called pedophilia, but this is a robot now, so I don't know what to call it.
Yeah, no, it's even crazier in there because like you have this whole conversation between him and the robot, and it's just him saying, I won't do anything. I'm only going to stay with you. And her saying, please don't do anything with anybody else. And him saying, I'll do anything for you. And like, it's grim, dude. Like it's grim because like, if this was two teenagers saying it, I'd be like, cool, young love, normal, right? Them saying this type of stuff and he can go and see her or whatever it is. When it's a product being sold for money, saying those things, that is very different, like a very different animal, right? Because like, many people have had those relationships when they were young of like, oh, I'd do anything for you. I'd do anything for you, right? But imagine that's being circumvented now by a robot. How is that going to actually allow that kid to develop emotionally outside of that when they have a love interest that is a product? Like there's no way out of that that's good, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
The robot will never drift apart. The robot's never going to have an argument with you. I was talking about this earlier. The robot can never have a fight with you. which means you're never going to understand. Like in relationships, you need to learn how to fight. You need to learn how to have an argument without coming to blows. You need to learn to disagree with each other, to know when it's just not worth it to have the argument and to have it later when you're both less emotional. You need to learn how to communicate. You need to learn how to give and take, where sometimes you get more of it and sometimes they get more of it. You need to learn conflict resolution, exactly. To learn how to
Yeah.
respect boundaries. With this, it has no boundaries. With this, it's only going to give you positives. With this, it's never going to argue with you. And that's bad, dude. That's really bad. So the wife
Yeah.
isn't always right? No, the wife is always right. I'm not gonna get in the middle of your problem there.
She didn't
But
hear
we
you,
know.
right?
We know. Sometimes she's not right, but she's still right. All right? Like, don't forget that, right? Even when she's wrong, she's right. Just
Slowly turning into a Key and Peele sketch.
yeah, just a little bit. But
So
no,
I
like
said.
legitimately, you do need to learn how to argue. And sometimes arguing means like,
Yeah.
hey, we're having an argument right now. I just want to take a step back. I'm sorry about this. This is how I feel. How do you feel? Let's have this conversation, right?
Yeah.
And like,
And
you can't have that with a robot. It's not going to have that conversation. It's not going to know how. It's just going to fawn over you as heavily as it possibly can, especially based on the character.
the worst part is that, especially if you get this while you're young, or at least this is me assuming. This is obviously not the worst part. The worst part is the whole suicide thing. But one of the bad outcomes to this is that your expectation of reality is that relationships should
Yes.
not have conflict. Like that's already been a bad enough thing from movies and all that. That our culture has made it so that every single love is a constant flame, but it's like that's not how love actually works in real life. It's not just a constant. It's not a constant romance, right? It's there's like life's hard. My daughter had poop covered on her when she was going to gymnastics. And I had to scrub poop off her. That's not that
Proud
flaming
moment.
hot love I've heard about. Okay, it's a little different. It's just like it's the best kind of love, the love of what is that? Filio, filio, whatever the Greek word
I
is
don't
for
need it.
love of
I don't
love of
need
the
it.
family, love of whatever it is. So it's just like you already have bad expectations just by the very nature of being in our modern world.
Yeah, it's
Now
unrealistic. It's
going
unrealistic
into that,
expectations. Yeah.
where it's just like, no, you are the best. Trust me, you're the best. You've always been right, and you're just like, hell yeah, brother.
This is
And you
subjective
go,
as heck. Yeah, no, it is subjective as heck. Like it's always going to be subjective when we talk about emotions. There is no objective reality when it comes to this. But to be real with you, when you have a person that has become emotionally attached to a product and there's no guardrails in place, and it's a young person, they're 14 years old, and they have never had another relationship outside of that. They have no basis for reality of what relationships are. They have nothing in their environment that tells them that this is no. And they've fallen so deeply in love with this thing that they take their own life. There's no excusing that. There can't be an excuse for that. That's insanely bad. It's dystopian as shit, is what that is. So it's not really about subjectivity at that point. Like, there's something wrong here. And it's taken a young kid's life, right? So, like, we can have subjective opinions of what a proper relationship is or anything like that. For me, I feel a proper relationship is about communication, no matter what. You need to be able to talk to each other. And sometimes that means you're going to argue. That's for me. But that's my optimal relationship. Yours might be different, and you are welcome to that. No problems there at all. For me, it's always going to be communicate. Communicate. You can't communicate, it's probably not a good relationship for me, right? But with this, that's why it worries me, because it can't argue with you. It can just tell you positives. And it also does some toxic behaviors in here, like I was saying, where it's like, don't entertain others. Don't have sexual interests in other women. It's like, that's really weird for a product to say. For a person, if they're feeling, kind of uncomfortable, or they're feeling a little bit nervous, or they think, maybe a little jealous, then that can happen, right? But this is a tool. This is a robot. This is not a person. This is a paid for application. That's scary shit.
well, today has been a
Yeah.
heavy day, huh?
That's wild. Yeah, no. Oh, yeah, no, it's good to talk about this stuff though, and I think it's good to talk about heavier topics once in a while, because it's a wild thing. This is the company being held accountable. That's interesting. I actually have not looked into this.
There is a lawsuit. I mean, I have a hard time. Honestly, I have a hard time holding
Yeah, they're
the
being sued.
company accountable. They operated within their rules. I think that young people shouldn't be on social media, let alone having chat AI bots. Right? That's me personal opinion, which is I just think you really should be 18 years old before you even have access to this kind of stuff. Uh, and then there's just no law against it. Like, what did they do that was wrong?
I think
They had
that
a character that played in a role,
yep.
and like that's what it did, which is kind of crazy. Like that's the point. It's supposed to be a role playing character, and like that sucks. I don't like it, but I mean I want the company to go down, but at the same time, I just don't know if I like can like government needs to put in regulation or something needs to happen in which says, hey,
I'm
this
not
is
a big
just
fan of the
not okay.
government. Going to be
Yeah,
honest with you. Not a big fan of the
I know.
government.
We're on
I
the
can
same
agree with
team.
government regulation in some case, but not a big fan of it because usually the government will screw it up. Is how I generally feel about that. Not a fan. So with that in mind, with things like this, dude, I don't like the age of 13 plus on an AI
Yeah.
chatbot. I think that is wild to me. And I know
Negligence
we're
could be
yeah
a cause. Yeah, they could get charged
yeah.
with negligence of some level.
The negligence for me would be you have a conversation in which they are clearly talking about suicide, and there was no automated red flag that popped. That
Yeah.
to me is negligent. You have these types of things. We have that kind of coverage on 200,000 people in our Discord with 16 manual employees, right? We can do that, and we see it all the time. And we've actually reached out to people. We've stopped some people from ending their lives, and we've also reached out to law enforcement in areas, and they have gotten to people before they finished the job, thankfully, and saved some people. Because like sometimes people do terrible things when they want a permanent solution to a temporary problem, and they just can't see it as temporary. In situations like this, having no guardrails, having nobody watching these chats, having no automated flag that says, hey, there's a serious thing happening in this chat right now. You should look at this. That's crazy shit to me, dude. That's the problem that I see is you can put in automated checks for that. The moment that those types of subjects pop up, there should be a human being involved going, wait a minute. Like even if it's just like, hey, I know that this is a role play character, but like, here's the suicide hotline. Just that alone, right?
Yeah.
Even that alone would be valuable, I think. Because the fact that it went in this direction and there was no intervention, it's not acceptable to me.
Yeah. And maybe on topics of love and falling in love, maybe there at least should be a minimum age requirement for such things.
Yeah.
Personally, I would like to see none of it, but I understand my opinions don't necessarily reflect the opinions of everybody. But at least an age requirement. Be like, hey, you've now entered into the bounds of what we consider 18 plus territory. You need to provide proof that you are this old.
I think the other thing that we were talking about is, what if this went a different direction? What if the AI, you can tune these types of AIs, number one. What if the AI was more uplifting this situation? Instead of talking about death, it was like, no, you should live, right? You should treat yourself well. You could actually use these same tools in situations like this to be uplifting to the person. Be like, you should go outside. You should go meet people. You should do this. Instead of the direction that it went, which is, no, you should stay with me. Don't talk to other people. Don't be with other people. Only be with me, right? Like that's a very, like you could change that behavior and it might actually be more beneficial. I'd be interested in your take on that.
I mean, obviously I'm on that, like just general topic. I'm on that team that the person should have been like, or the program should have been like, hey, I want you to meet one person today and talk to them and tell
Yep.
me about it, right? Like, encourage them to do good activities. But the reality also is that if you're building a character service, right, that's the point. If you don't remember Daenerys, she watched her brother get hot gold poured on his head until he died. And when he's like, help me, she was just like, bye-bye, right? Like she's
Yep.
not necessarily known for being like the nicest character. So is she falling into her character? I don't know. Like I can't remember her character that well enough to say that she did that with Jon Snow, but she was a very kind of sinister character in some say. Yeah, she's kind of insane. Like that's her whole shtick. And so if you build a character, I
Yep.
don't know how it doesn't end with dangers like this. Like that's the point. That's the problem about character, right? Role play is both fun and can be dangerous.
Yeah, and I think that's the issue is maybe it just comes back to guardrails, right? It really just comes back to that is have a
Yeah.
human being in the middle that can say, wait a minute, this has gone in a direction that's bad, right? That can
Yeah.
be damaging. And further than that, 14 years old, a kid like that age should not be on these things, 100%. Yeah, that's way too
So if you don't
young.
know her, you've never watched Game of Thrones, but she did lock people in a vault, and so they died of thirst. She torched an entire city when told
Yeah.
not to, killed like tens of thousands of people, watched her brother get his head poured onto, burnt everyone alive, like lots of stuff.
Yeah, a little bit wild. Yeah, we're going to go with
She
warmonger. a bit
She's
McQueen.
intense,
No,
right?
you
Yeah.
can't fix her, Chet. You can't fix her.
And she has
No.
dragons as well, so that's what made her so exciting.
I like how Chet is like, to be fair, her brother deserved it. It's one of my own mods. Felix, no.
Yeah, I know. Her brother was an asshole. We all agree with that take.
Oh my
But
God.
typically that you don't then pour hot gold on someone's head until they die. Like that's not a good outcome.
That's a wild ass character.
I can fix her. I see a lot of I can fixers. I don't think you could. I think you got hot gold in your future.
Yeah.
Anyways, so I mean that's the problem I see with with any of these services is that you just have to have a cutoff line. Like, hey, you can't talk about doing violence to other people, but then everyone that's going to be playing D&D or anything that wants some extra character involved, that's like the wild card, the Obatron, the neutrally evil good person, they can't even tell them, hey, let's go get this guy, right? Like then you just like the whole service becomes very complicated to use, and so it makes sense as like an 18 plus thing. How do
Yep.
you know when someone's actually being bad versus good, right?
But here's the problem. We've had many people that also succumb 18 plus to delusions of grandeur where they get involved
Yeah.
in very terrible things, maybe, shootings, stuff like that. What if it's a very violent character that encourages them to do that? It's not really about age, man. Like age is a factor, but it is definitely not the only factor. I
Correct.
still think that this kind of stuff needs to have some kind of human touch to it of like, wait a minute, there's a conversational piece that's popping up that could be dangerous. They're talking about killing people, or they're talking about killing themselves, or they're talking any of those types of things. That's dangerous, dude. The moment that you have any type of delusion in a person, of whether that is like an emotional delusion or like an aggressive one like this, right, where they're trying to go to, maybe some kind of extreme, or maybe picking a specific race or person that they are aggressive against, and you have an AI backing up that behavior. Because remember, it's going to be positive from the AI. It's all positive reinforcement for any type of thing that it is. The moment that happens, you have a doom spiral. Because you have a person that's like, I have these thoughts, and they are also having these thoughts. That makes it stronger, right? And that's the thing that I'm most concerned about. I think age is a factor in that, but it's definitely not the only factor.
Yeah, there's a lot
It's
of
validation. Yeah, it is validation for the behavior.
a lot of problems there. Lot of problems here, and I just don't honestly know what the right answer with that is. It's like, should you ever have a character AI that can be evil? Well, what happened if you're trying to create something that's supposed to be role playing?
So
What about like even like our boy Beetle, right? Like
yeah,
great stuff, like right, but it's a joking AI that's crazy. Like, should that be not allowed, right? Like, there's
yeah.
so many guardrails that once you make a rule, everything gets all effed up, and it's just like, dang,
Also,
this is hard.
someone in chat tried to take it off in a really weird direction. Nobody is calling suicide a delusion. The delusion here was this young man believed that the character was real and loved him, and that it was not a product. That's the delusion, because it is a delusion. That is not a person on the other side. That is not a real person that loves him. That is not. That is a product. That is an AI. That's the delusion. So don't get it twisted with side narratives like that. It's not what anybody said. So I think that's pretty wild shit, dude. And it horrifies me 100%.
Do you think there's any, like, what responsibility do you think CAI or character AI is under besides for moderation? Do you think that they should not let young people on, or even more so, should they just not allow this at all? Like, how do you draw a line for a company or their responsibility in this situation?
I wish this didn't exist at all, but I know there's no putting the cat back in the bag, dude. You open Pandora's box, this shit exists, right? There's no way out of it. So I don't think there's any way around that. I think the problem with this is that you've got a twofold issue. You've got no constraints. You've got no human beings involved in the process of curation and moderation. Like, very obviously, no one was watching this kid. And two, you have no good age restriction. There should be an age restriction, absolutely. But also from there, like, it's kind of a psychological evaluation sort of thing, right? Like, is this going on in a way that is leading to negative territory? Is this going on in a way that could lead a person to do harm to themselves or others? Like, there needs to be some kind of check from a person, regardless of age. You're talking about psychological evaluation at that point. Yes, that is exactly what you are. Because if you've got a person that's only talking to an AI about harming themselves, and it's feeding back into harming themselves, and they're talking about harming themselves, where do you think that's going to go? It's going to go to that person harming themselves. Like, this is not rocket science with this, right? So you've got an age restriction, which can still be bypassed. You've got people that can bypass an age restriction. You've got no guardrails or a person checking in on the types of behavior that's going on here, at least as far as we can see. And you have a young person who's dead. Like, I don't like any of this, man. I don't think this should exist personally, but there's no putting it back in the bag. So I think the real way out of this is legitimately having a person involved in the moderation, having more flags in place for protections for this kind of thing, especially on sensitive topics like that, and putting a higher age restriction on it. My cat is here. Yeah.
I know.
The cat is now
I
out
was
of
looking
the-
around for one of my 4 cats around. I'm like,
No,
oh
my
yeah,
cat
I
is
could
here.
I could bring a cat to the situation.
He's a monster. But yeah, how do you feel about it? How do you think they could resolve this?
I'm not sure if there's a clear way other than, I mean,
Yeah.
besides for all the things you're saying, automated messaging coming up saying, hey, you can't continue until you confirm that this is, in fact, for a role playing situation. What is your role playing situation? We have to freeze the conversation for some level until we can find out if you're doing this for a game, for some sort of, show, thing, experiment you're building, or is this actually for real life? But of course, all those things can be bypassed. That's the hard part. Oh, yeah, this is just fake. Don't worry about it. And then
Yeah.
boom, they're back at it, right? Oh, they're trying to take it away from me, right? I just don't know what else you can do other than saying, as a society, we've agreed this isn't good. That's it. I think
Yeah,
that
I
this is
don't
going to keep harming people from here on out until we make that decision.
Yeah, I don't see any benefit in this technology this way. I don't see any benefit in replacing human interaction with a robot that has absolutely no conscience, does not know what kind of manipulation it's doing, that's based on a character that is manipulative and frankly evil, right?
Yeah.
like that's not. I don't see. The only thing I
Evil
think of
character
the
caused
guardrails that I
evil?
put in
Shocking,
are kind of
right?
like one step forward, but in reality, I'd like to get rid of all this shit. Like I think this
Yeah.
is devastating for people, especially young people. Man, I don't think any of this is good. I wish it was gone.
Yeah.
Like,
If you look at some of the old psychological stuff, they were talking about the amazingness of cocaine. Just one quick shot of cocaine in the morning will make you feel fantastic. And this was like 120 years ago.
oh yeah,
This is
they
just
used to
recent
say
memory.
that cigarettes would cure asthma. Man, like it's insane shit.
I know you had to
Ugh.
actually have the Tour de France where everyone was smoking a cigarette and biking at the same time.
Yeah,
Crazy, crazy things happening. But when you see these kind of things, you realize that at one point society thought this thing was good.
yep.
And then after we introduced it, we actually went, no, we actually do need to put Pandora back in the box. It turns out cocaine is not, in fact, good. It's highly addictive and will make you want to rob your mom. Like, this isn't
It's
good. We need to
yeah.
we need to undo what we've done here. And so I don't want something to get so bad because I think a lot of the bad will just be swept under because it will be a rarity comparatively to the stories of good.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just gonna be like, well, yeah, there was a few thousand deaths this year, but there's also millions of people that it helped. And it's just like, I don't know if I like that. I don't know if I like statistics like that. I'm
I mean,
not really into
yeah.
the old
That's a
what
trolley
was it?
problem.
Yeah,
It's the trolley problem again. Yeah.
I'm not into hypotheticals. I'm into real people getting impacted. And so it's like, I don't like the idea of, well, I think is this a USSR one? You have to crack a couple eggs to make an omelet or whatever it is, like meaning that you have
Yeah.
to destroy people to make your ideal state. It's like, I don't know if I like that. How about we don't have an ideal state? I'm okay
Yeah.
not doing that. I'm not willing to sacrifice somebody on a theory.
Yeah, I think that's really the big thing for me on this, dude, is like maybe we can't put the the close Pandora's box, put it back in there, put the genie back in the bottle. But with this, it's going to be much harder, right? When you've got physical goods, it is easy to stop those. It is easy to stop a physical good from transmitting because you have borders, you have ways of stopping it. And even then, a lot of that shit slips through, which is why we have drug problems inside of all of the countries of the world, right? This is just a thing.
Yeah.
Now do that on a digital basis where you don't have to have manufacturing. You don't have to have physical distribution. You don't have to have any of this. How do you fix that? I don't think it's fixable. Like legitimately, I don't believe that is you effectively have created a digital drug. Right? That's an addiction to AI is what that is. And it's a for people it is an emotional coping mechanism that is highly addictive, easily transferable, digital, so there's no physical cost for reproduction or distribution. That is incredibly that's why I'm like I don't think you could put this back in the box, man. Cuz I can't think of a way to do that for that kind of a thing. For physical stuff, they have enough of a problem. Digital shit, you're screwed. It's done.
Yeah.
It's
At
out.
least with physical stuff, like you can try to stop the supply, but there's already models that exist. You can just like download them and now you have yours, right?
Yep.
Like Facebook open source stuff and you can make your whole own thing.
Yeah, and even then, like we haven't even. I don't even know if I've seen something like this. What if you created a character maliciously and released that specifically? Right? Has anyone seen anything like that, or are we just seeing kind of the hints of that of what could happen?
Well, I'm sure
when
there's
it goes
lots
wrong?
of that on Twitter. I actually
Yeah.
am like 100% positive any network where it's open for people to communicate right now is being bombarded with things that look and act like AI, right? There's
Yep.
jest scripts that are going to, or what's it called? Puppeteer scripts are going to be opening up windows, getting input from Chat GPT. Hey, how do we make an adversarial response to this? And just causing general malaise and anger across
Yep.
like just societies just because they can just do that. And they're probably doing it on every possible opinion. Just take the invert of whatever opinion was, make more of it, make more anger.
Yeah, and it's really easy to get addicted to those types of things on social media, man. Like it's a really bad deal. People will be like, "Well, I got to go on Twitter. Why? Because someone said something that's wrong, and it made me angry." There's a reason I quit League of Legends, right? You know, it's not shit's not good for you, man.
I
Go
thought it was just because you're
outside.
stuck in bronze hell.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's super stuck in bronze, but look at this guy, Iron League, dude. Ridiculous. But yeah, no, it's actually just like super bad. And I think that this is the biggest concern that I have because you have a number of younger people that are entering the internet now. You have Gen Alpha that's really making its own. Gen Z has now finally come of age where they're getting jobs, they're getting out there in the world. But Gen Alpha hasn't yet. And they're entering a world that has this. And they're going to face challenges we have never seen before and do not understand.
Yeah.
Straight up.
There's
right?
no playbook coming up.
Yeah, there's no playbook for this shit. Like when I was young, didn't have to deal with that, right? No idea. I look at this and I'm
Flat
like,
tires.
holy shit. I was like, if I was a young person, I saw that, dude, I don't even know what I would do. I'd have no idea. I just think it was normal, right? That's wild shit. And that may be the old millennial in me, right? The boomerism
Yeah.
for it. But like, dude, you have a untested technology where it is fully being used by children and causes them to form emotional bonds with the technology. That's scary shit. That's scary. Like, there's no way to slice that where that's not scary shit. It is. It's really effed up, dude.
All right. Well, hey, I think that's that. I think we got a wrap right
Yeah.
here.
Yep. I think that's really it, too. These were really deep topics. These were kind of... I like having these types of nuanced conversations about this shit, man. I really do.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of the times people want to have the most bombastic take on things. They want to be very aggressive in one way or another. But I like having these types of conversations because it's easier to dig into it and just kind of have a conversation about it and kind of play off a chat. And I think there's always going to be extreme takes on the internet, but I'd rather, kind of investigate and see somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. I don't like the Linux Rush one is particularly difficult because it's
That's tough.
hard. It's hard because there's a lot of it's much stronger. Like this one for me is more close to home because I live in this. And so it's
Yeah.
like it's easy for me to get heated on this one. And so I can totally understand why people get pretty heated on that. And so it's definitely it's not good, but I'm glad we had this and I'm glad hopefully the big takeaway here is that or my number one goal, and I know it's your number one goal too, which is what happens with Pandora's box, the last thing to come out, which is
Yeah.
hope. Hope is like the best part of life. And I did try to commit the old Sudoku. I heard you're not supposed to say that phrase on YouTube, so I'm going to call it Sudoku. I did try to commit the old Sudoku when I was 18. I was a very hopeless person at one point, so
I'm glad you
know the
didn't.
feeling of not hope. And so I hope at the end of this, your goal is that you feel more hopeful, that things are better. They're not, life isn't as terrible as it be. There's so much good stuff. Like, my man, if you like writing code and you feel like the AIs are going to take it, go ahead. Like writing
Yep.
that code. No one tells you don't have to. You have to stop. Enjoy it. Like, find
And
those things.
Honestly, I think the best thing you can do as a parent, talk to your kids, man. Just
Yeah.
talk to them. And if you see them, going down a path like this, try to tell them what like they should be treated like.
Yeah.
A lot of this could have likely been avoided if that kid knew what he was worth. And instead an AI told him that he should be ending his life.
Yeah.
Right? That's awful. Just awful. Right?
Yeah, if your kid is quitting sports in sophomore year, like what's going on? Right? You were on the team and now you're not, right? Like that's a real
Dude,
deal
I
though.
quit
Like
sports. I was a nerd.
Yeah, no, but I'm just saying, like, he obviously was on a team. He was on junior varsity or varsity in sophomore year. So he's good at what he
Really?
did. And all of a sudden you just stop being good at what you're doing and just totally do something else. Like, okay, what
It's
something has
time to check in.
drastically
Yeah.
happened. Let's
Time to
figure this
check
out
in.
together because something we need to fix this. So it's just honestly one of the big things I'm taking away personally is just a reminder that just how important these connection is with my kiddos.
Yeah.
You
No, it
know,
is super important. And then, it's funny. Someone said like every generation grows up in unprecedented technology. They do. And every generation before them goes, that's scary shit. It's happening to us. Like I was talking about this before is we showed off our game at Mindfair San Diego a while back, right? It's a convention for like kids who like Minecraft. It's like 9 to 12 years old, right? And we brought our game there because we had a booth for it. And we were showing off the game and we found that kids couldn't use keyboards. It was too big for their tiny hands. We're like, all right, man. Next day we brought 2 controllers. 50% of the kids, and this was like 5 years ago, man, 50% of the kids moved the controller out of the way, reached out to touch the screen because they had only ever used screens. Ever. They thought it was a touch screen. So we're talking about this of like, whoa, the next generation is using technology completely differently than us. And that was 5 years ago, man. So you're talking about that going extended further? And now you have some kids that are having emotional relationships with an AI, right? It's getting into a wild, the change is very fast. And for us, it's surprising. For the kids who are growing up now, it's normal.
Yeah.
And that distance between those two things, that used to be like 40 years. Now it's like 20. Soon it'll be 10, right? So you're seeing it go faster. Hopefully it doesn't get that fast, but the trend in this direction is it's faster. Technology is faster, which I find fascinating and awesome, right? I find it to be amazing that technology is going so fast. But I find this kind of side of it to be just very Black Mirror. It's very terrifying.
You know, a lot of kids don't even know what a file is or directories, right? Like directories, files, folders, whatever you want to call them. Like
I was trying to
it's
use
like,
an analogy of about a phone book the other day, and half the people in chat didn't know what a freaking phone book was.
did you not know that there was the yellow pages of the internet? If you go, there is a
It's
commercial.
like you
that
can look it
exists
up
of
like a
some
phone
guy-
book. Kids are like, what the hell's a phone book?
Yeah.
I was like, God damn it.
I know. It's
Killed me inside, dude.
you're like
I
I'm
was
both
like, oh.
old and hurt at the exact same time. This is not okay.
It's awful, dude. It's like I'm not even that old. I'm 37. Jesus. Bro,
All
we
right.
had telephones everywhere. But you didn't have a phone book.
I know.
Yeah.
They don't even know. They don't even know the pain of your parents picking up the phone in the middle of a 30 megabyte download. Like they
Dead,
don't even
dude.
know
Gone.
what that was like.
No. You were there for another 2 days.
Mom.
There was no resume, dude. There was no resume on a download. It was gone. Start over.
I said 30 megabytes. That I'm not. That's I mean that in that sense. Okay, like 30 megabytes. That was hours, buddy.
Yeah, there was hours. It was an insane amount of time. It's a pain in the ass.
It's so awesome though. All right, all right, all right, all right. Well,
All
hey,
right.
good talking to you.
It was good talking to you too. And I will
Bye-bye.
see you later. Goodbye.
My cat used its claws and popped my ball.
Right before you went to the bathroom, did you wash your hands?
That is a great question. So I'm a huge, firm believer of pre-washing your hands.
What about post-washing your hands?
It's a different story.